Hey beauty friends, I'm Meredith from Beadalon and Artistic Wire, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a poinsettia flower out of beads and artistic wire, and then how to attach it to your own store-bought wreath. For this project, you will also need a store-bought wreath and then any additional decorations that you want to add. To make the flower, you'll need to make 5 large petals, 5 small petals, 3 leaves, and the center. We'll start by making the center. You want to take out a length of 24 gauge gold color wire, but leave it on the spool. Next, pour your size 11 gold seed beads into the Spin and Bead Junior. With your thumb, bend the wire, then put the hook down into the spinning beads and spin up about 3 feet of beads onto the wire. Beadalon also has a great video on how to use the spin and bead. If you need a little bit of extra help with this skill, be sure to check that out. After you've strung up about 3 feet of beads onto the wire, twist the end of the wire into a little loop to secure your beads. Leave about 6 inches of wire between the end loop and where you're going to do your work, and measure out about 1 inch of beads and twist them into a loop. Repeat that step of measuring out about 1 inch of beads and twisting them into a loop 10 times to create the center of your flower. After you've made all 10 loops, go ahead and cut off the flower center from your working wire. The next step is to twist the ends of those wires together and form all of the little loops into a nice, neat cup. Now we'll use size 11 seed beads to make 5 large petals and 5 smaller petals. Repeat the steps by pouring your beads into the quick change tray, and then place your tray over the Spin and Bead Junior. This time you'll work with the red artistic wire. Use your thumb to form a hook on the end of the wire and place it into the spinning beads. This time, you want to string up about 6 feet of red beads onto that wire. Leave about 4 to 6 inches at the top of your wire and measure out about 1.5 inches of beads. And twist a loop below those beads, locking them in between the loop that you're just twisting and the top of the wire. Next, I'll start wrapping the beads from the working spool around that center wire in order to form the shape of the petal. I'll bring the beads up to the top, cross them at a 45-degree angle above those center beads, and give the wire a twist to lock it in place. Next, I'll move more beads from my working wire up toward that top wire and bring them down to the bottom, again crossing at a 45-degree angle and giving my now formed petal a twist. I'll continue doing that until I have 5 rows on either side of that center petal. After I have 5 rows, I'll go ahead and give the bottom a double twist and snip the working wire off of the petal close to the beads. Repeat the steps until you have 5 large petals. You'll also need to make 5 small petals. And to do that, you'll follow the same steps for the large petal, but instead of using 1.5 inches of beads for that center part, you'll only need to measure out 1 inch. After you've finished your petals, it's time to move on to making the leaves. Pour your green beads into another quick change tray and then switch it out on your Spin & Bead Junior. Follow those same steps to make 3 leaves with the green beads and the green artistic wire using 1 inch of beads in the center. Now we're ready to start assembling our flower. Take a 12-inch piece and wrap it with a stretched out piece of floral tape. Before we start assembling our flower, we need to trim up both sides of the petals and the leaves. Take your cutters and cut that top wire, leaving about 1/4 inch at the top of the beads. Then take your chain nose plier and bend that little wire end down so it's flush against the back of your petal. To neaten up the bottom wire, untwist it and then cut one side carefully so that that double twisted wire then becomes one straightened wire. If you need to, use your nylon jaw pliers to straighten that wire just a little bit. Now for the fun part. We get to start assembling all of the pieces that we've made into a flower. You'll start with the center piece. Take the 28 gauge wire and wrap the center piece around about 3 times. Next, start with the small petals. Add each of the small petals, one at a time, and wrap 3 times with the 28 gauge artistic wire. After you've finished attaching the 5 small petals, go ahead and add the 5 larger petals right underneath the small petals. Attach them the same way by wrapping each petal 3 times, then adding the next. After you've added all of the petals, go ahead and attach the leaves underneath those large petals. Use the same technique, wrapping 3 times in between each of the leaves. After you've assembled all of your petals and leaves, go ahead and wrap around a number of times to secure all of those ends with the wire. You can snip the 28 gauge wire from your flower. After you've secured all of your petals and leaves, take your cutters and snip the ends so that they are at an angle against the 12 gauge wire. The last step is to take another piece of stretched out floral tape and cover all of the ends of your wire. After all of your ends are covered up with floral tape, go ahead and tear it off and then use your fingers just to smooth everything out. Attach the flower to your wreath using 24 gauge artistic wire. So there you have it. With a little bit of artistic wire and some beads, you can make a beautiful poinsettia flower and attach it to a wreath. You can also use this technique for all different kinds of flowers, leaves, and plants. The possibilities are limitless. Until next time, happy beading.